My name is Andee and I'm part of the Next Gen team. This month in our home groups, we're talking all about how we can trust God's wisdom to help encourage us to live our best lives. As I'm thinking about wisdom, you want to start thinking about how things are right or wrong or good or bad, but inevitably so much of our lives live in this area of gray. I'm immediately reminded of this time back when I was in high school, where my friends and I would get to hang out and have fun, and ultimately the time would come for me to go home. You see, my curfew was ridiculously earlier than all of my friends' curfews. And I would always feel like I was leaving right when the time came where everyone was having the best time, and out walked Andee. It was so frustrating and humiliating. So one night I got this brilliant idea that I would ask my friend's mom to call my mom to see if I could stay later. Now, at face value, it felt like the most brilliant idea, because what mom-to-mom conversation would end with, "Oh no, she needs to come home." I thought it was going to be a no-brainer. Well, as you can imagine, that is not at all how the conversation went. In fact, my mom told my friend's mom that I'd better be home at curfew or I would be grounded. Hearing that, I knew that as I was driving home that I would be in for it. And sure enough, I got home and I was in a heap of trouble for trying to play my mom against my friend's mom. You see, so often in life, we want things to be right or wrong or good or bad, but there's a lot of gray in a lot of decisions we make. For example, lying. We could stand right here and say, "Oh, lying's terrible." But how often have some of us stretched the truth a little bit, or better yet, omitted a portion of the truth in order to help somebody else out? For example, your friend says that, "Hey, do you like my outfit?" And then we have to look at them and make a decision. Do we say, "Yeah, we love it," or are we honest and say, "Oh, I don't know"? It's not a good feeling, right? Sometimes telling the truth is a little bit harder than we make it out to be. Or what about this? Boundaries. When it comes to things like sex. Maybe you've heard church people talk about how sex was made to happen in marriage. But isn't it true that we'd kind of like to treat physical stuff as a sliding scale? I mean, there's this whole range of things that happen before sex. So what about kissing? Is it right or is it wrong? And then how far can I go before what seems okay turns into less okay, to not okay, to wrong? Are we really supposed to not do anything until marriage, or is everything okay before marriage? And how do you know? What about with our friends? We've all got that one friend who makes bad decisions, but it's not a bad person. I know in my life, I have several friends who I absolutely adore, but man, they're just not good for me. Ultimately, their choices rub off on me, and I start talking like them and using words like them, and I just don't become the best version of myself. What do you do with that? Like, are we supposed to just dump a friend? Or are we supposed to be like Jesus followers and basically be friends with everybody? Then there's this whole social media thing and what we post and how it follows us. You know, I don't know about you, but for me, sometimes it feels good to get that like. Is that wrong? Should I be posting for the gratification that it gives me? Or should I be posting for another reason? And then what about standing up for things, or when not to stand up for things? It's really gray. It's so hard to know what is right and what is wrong and what's in between and where's the line. You could probably think of a million other examples just like these where the situation isn't as easy as saying this is right or this is wrong. And every day we encounter situations that fall somewhere in the in-between. Situations won't always have this clear, this is good and this is bad answer. So the question is, how do we make decisions when the answer isn't obvious? And what makes me think of is this word called wisdom. Now, there's a few ways that we can really explain the word wisdom, but here's a simple way to think about it. Wisdom helps us avoid foolish decisions. And that's what the series is really all about. Wisdom is really what stands in the gap between an amateur decision and pro thinking, between rookie mistakes and decisions that we end up being proud of for our lifetimes. You see, over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at some of these big ideas from one of my favorite books of the Bible, and that is the book of Proverbs. In the book of Proverbs, you will find all of these amazing thoughts and ideas and sayings and instructions for how we can live our lives and insights of wisdom. In fact, I bet that you probably have heard some of these sayings that are in the book of Proverbs in your day-to-day life, not even realizing they came from the Bible. Now, this book of Proverbs is written by one of the wisest men who ever lived. He was an ancient king of Israel. His name was Solomon. All right? And so what we're going to do over the next few weeks is we're going to look in Proverbs for some of these amazing truths to help guide us towards wisdom and understanding what we should do in these really great situations. For example, check out this verse with me. It comes from the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. It says this, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your paths straight." I just love how Solomon starts this out. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Trust God. Now, trust might be a little bit hard for you depending on your background, but here's the thing. We can trust the one true God who made everything, including you and me, who knows absolutely everything. And my favorite part, who knows how everything works out. Plus, Jesus made it really clear that he is a God who can be trusted because he loves you. So here's the thing. Solomon doesn't just stop there. Doesn't just say, just trust God with all your heart. He gives us this reminder, this urgency to remember. He says this, don't lean on your own understanding. I think this is so key and so important because so often we hear in our lives, just trust your gut, go with your gut instinct. And like there are times in life where that's going to be really true. Like there are going to be times where our gut instinct is going to save us in a dangerous situation. Our gut's going to tell us to run or yell for help. And inevitably, we need to trust our gut in those situations. But so often I feel like in our day-to-day lives that we can't really trust our gut because our gut doesn't really have a real strong intuition of what we're supposed to do. There isn't a clear-cut right or wrong. And in those situations, how do we know what we're supposed to do? Trust God with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In a lighter way to think about it, I think of the episode Stranger Things. And if you've seen the whole thing, you know how it's going to end, right? But in walks your little brother, who's only seen the trailer because that's all he's allowed to watch. And he's trying to argue with you that he knows what's going to happen. Who are you going to trust? Are you going to trust yourself who actually knows what's going to happen? Or are you going to trust your brother who doesn't know all that there is to know? When I look at this first half of this verse, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Our God has gone before us and he knows what's going to happen. So trusting him over our own understanding, even when we think we might know, trusting God is inevitably going to be a much better move for our lives. But in true Solomon's wisest form, he keeps going. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Get this. In all your ways, submit to him. Okay, so let's break this down. We're trusting God. We're not relying on our own understanding or even necessarily our gut instinct. And then in all your ways, submit to God. For some of us, submit might sound like a really strange word. So if you look at it in other translations, which is one of my favorite things to do, is put different translations next to each other to see how I can better understand scripture, right? But in another translation, it says this. It uses the word acknowledge. All of this is just a really big idea to invite God to be involved and to take charge in every part of our lives. It's saying, I know that I don't know all that I need to know to be able to make the wise move or to know what my next step should be. So I'm going to trust God. I'm not going to lean on what I think that I know, but instead I'm going to invite God into my story and be a bigger part of helping me make the next move. Here's the thing, like anything that's worthwhile, it can't be a once a week deal. This has to be a daily, a weekly, a momently decision. We have to choose to trust God with not just part of our lives, but all of our lives. Now, not every scripture verse comes with a promise, but this one does. At the end of verse 6, Solomon lets us in on the end part of it. He says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will make your paths straight. I love that. It's certainty and knowing that if we trust God, it's not saying it's going to be the easy way. What it's saying is that if we trust God and we invite him into our story and we allow him to speak into our lives, in all of our life, not just parts of it, that he will show us the path to take. Listen, if you're like me and you're human, which I'm hoping you are, your perspective is limited. We can care a whole lot, but we can only see part. We can only see the parts of our lives that have happened and are happening now. Solomon is saying that when we trust God with our lives, God will help us see the next step to make our lives move forward better. And following that path now, the best you can to avoid making decisions that can negatively impact our future is the best move, is the pro move. Trusting God is the wisest thing you can do. Trusting God is our pro move. So, let's read it one more time. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding, your own gut instinct. Instead, in all of your ways, acknowledge him. Invite him into your story, your whole story. And then he will make your path straight. There are going to be a lot of gray areas in our lives. And there are going to be times where we ask God to help us. And we might not get an immediate answer. But the ultimate truth is that we keep inviting him in. We keep trusting him each and every day, moment by moment, day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year. And he will make our path straight. We will never regret it. So remember this, trusting God is a pro move. Everything happening in your life will be a part of your story. You are writing your story with the choices you make today, right now. You get to decide what kind of story you get to tell with your life. And if you want that to be a pro one, that doesn't happen overnight. It starts by leaning into wisdom today and every day. So as you head out to your groups, here's what I want you to think about. These two questions. First, what if you did this? What if every time you had a decision to make, you actively trusted God? You studied scripture, ran the decisions by your small group, and leaned into someone older and wiser in your life? What would your future look like if you made tons of wise decisions now because you decided to seek wisdom daily? What if this is a great way to see God working in your life now and ultimately in the future? That's question one. But here's question two. What if you didn't? What if you don't do those things, but instead you lean on your own understanding and make decisions with your own perspectives? What could go wrong? What could go right? What could you miss out on? As a young adult, the choice is entirely up to you. But I think you owe it to yourself to at least think about how you make decisions and whether wise choices today lead to a better tomorrow.
What is up, PTSM? We are so glad that you joined us for home groups today. Before we go ahead and release you to small groups, we want to make sure that you know some of the things coming up in the ministry. First off, we have 2 serve trips going on during the spring break season. We're going to North Dallas and we're going to Mission Arlington. Pick the week that coincides with your spring break and come join us. Another thing we want to remind you about is that we have a high school student section every Sunday in the worship center. Want to go ahead and worship and listen to a message with your peers? Come on down, check it out. Finally, March 5th is our next block party. Go ahead and join us for a theme that I'm pretty excited about, the birthday bash. Think of the best birthday party you went to when you were a kid. Bouncy castles, cake, pizza, piñata. That's what we're doing. We are celebrating somebody's birthday. We don't know. Maybe it's yours, maybe it's ours. Who knows? It's a birthday. You are not going to want to miss out. March 5th. Join us. Be there. All right, guys. Well, that's all for us here today. Go ahead, enjoy your small groups, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.
If this looked bad, I'm going to scream. Nobody tell me if it looked bad.